Hey folks, Andy Nice here with Glide Cinema in Louisville, Kentucky. Welcome to the channel where we talk all things video production and business. Today, let's talk about our file management workflow here at Glide Cinema. All right, so as we all know, media management in our industry can be a bear, as there are some days where we're shooting multiple terabytes of footage. So what I want to do today is just help you out and kind of show you our process from pre-production to the actual shoot day to post-production, and then even cold storage after that at our production company here at Glide Cinema. So we break it down into three types of storage here at Glide Cinema. We have cold storage, warm storage, and then device storage. So when I talk about cold storage, I'm essentially talking about a drive that we are dropping all of our media onto directly after a shoot, and that is going to host all of our historical media. It also acts as a really good backup. This device is not fast, it's not designed to work off of. Essentially, we are just offloading all of our projects, all of our files onto this to keep for the long haul. Going off of that, we always have a second cold storage drive. So essentially, as soon as we back up to the first one, we back up to the second one for redundancy. That way, if one drive fails, we know we have this other backup. And personally, I don't mind paying a bit of money and investing in cold storage. These drives are pretty well bulletproof. The next type of storage that we deal with is warm storage. When it comes to warm storage, we are typically talking about our drives that we are working on or dumping onto directly on site. These are going to be faster. That way you can work off of them if you need to, so you can review files, test color, whatever you need to do, get your rough cuts done. But essentially, we have multiple types of warm storage that we use. Again, we always have two with us on site just for redundancy. You want to make sure that all of your files are backed up and you don't lose anything. With warm storage, we traditionally like to use something that is 1500 meg per second or faster. We use these custom drives that we had made for us. It has an internal SSD. Essentially what we'll do is when we're on site, we'll get our shooting done, we'll offload directly to these. Now it's the same with our warm storage as it is our cold storage. We like to have two drives always on site with us for redundancy. That way if somebody loses the media or if one messes up, we have that backed up. The last type of media that we talked about is our device storage. And essentially that is just the memory card or the storage device that is designed for the camera or the audio recorder that always sticks with it. So let's go ahead and dive into the first step of the process, and that is prepping our media for the shoot day. Now, the first step in prepping our media for a shoot is making sure that our device media has been dropped to our cold storage. Once it's been dropped to our cold storage, we know that we can format the media in the camera, which when you format a card in a camera, just to let you know, or format any type of card anywhere, it completely erases everything off of it and starts fresh. So essentially before every shoot, we make sure we format our device media and make sure that it's ready to go and shoot all day long. So once that's been dropped to cold storage, we know, hey, if we got to pull these files back, we can pull them back at any time and put them on one of our warm drives or however we need to go about that. The next step in prepping our media, we want to make sure that we have warm storage devices on site with us. That way we can drop from our camera to those. So essentially, we always make sure that we have 2 terabytes per drive of clean storage per shoot day. So essentially, I've already checked these. I made sure that they are clean and good to go. I even will sometimes go ahead and name my project in here. I'll show you a little bit later about how we organize our files, which will be nice. But essentially, I like to name my projects on here identical to the way I name them in cold storage. That way, essentially, I can just drag and drop once we get back to the office after the shoot. And again, I have 2 terabytes, 2 terabytes. And essentially, when my camera gets full on site, I'll drop to one drive, and then I'll have someone else over on the side dropping to this other drive before we even leave the shooting site. We just want to make sure that if someone is to lose the media that's in the camera, or if one of these drives fail, that we have the footage backed up. This is really handy, especially when we're traveling, like to Florida or to Chicago or somewhere near to shoot, we want to make sure that we have backed up everything that we have captured that day. All right, that pretty much sums it up for our shoot day media prep. Next, let's dive into formatting our device media and file naming. All right, so on to the next section, which is formatting our device media as well as file naming. So the first thing I'm gonna do, obviously, is we've made sure all of our media is backed up. So like right now I'm shooting on the FX6. It's been backed up to cold storage from our last shoot. Now we know that we can format the media on the day of. So I'm gonna go ahead and format it, but what I wanna talk to you about is being able to name your files within the camera. Some cameras you're not able to name the files, but I know in the FX6 you can, and most of the productions that we work on, we're requiring a higher end cinema camera that you can name your files. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you an example of what we name our files and what we ask if we hire a DP or a camera operator or an audio person, an example of what we want them to name the files. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna dive into OneNote here on my phone. I'll throw it up on the screen. So essentially in the camera, what I like, if someone can do this, I want them to name the production company, which in this case we'll use Glide Cinema as the production company. So we'll have a production company code, and then you'll have underscore, and then what we'll have is a project code or a client code, one or the other. So let's just say we're making content here, so our production code would be CON. So I'm gonna go ahead and put CON, that's our project code. And then we're gonna have another underscore. And then I like to have the date. So I will put today's date, which is July 26th, 2023. So we'll go 07/26/2023, okay? Now the next thing I like to do is have the camera on there, because there are some instances where we'll have the A cam, B cam, we may even have a drone, we may even have some BTS stuff. So what we'll do in here is we'll put another underscore, and for example for this, we'll do FX6, and then we'll put A at the end of that to signify that it's A cam. And then what we'll do is just put another little underscore, and essentially when it starts naming files, it'll make that like 0001 and then 0002, so on and so forth. All right, so that's pretty much it for file naming. I will go through this just real quick again. First off, we have the production company, then we have the project code, then we have the date, then we have the camera and what status it is, whether it's A, B, C cam, maybe drone. And then the file naming, the numbers will take care of themselves with the camera. But pretty straightforward. What I've noticed is if I'm hiring out a camera operator, it makes it a little easier to know exactly what shoot it's for in case they send me files later on, or if we have multiple productions going on. It just really helps in the post-production side as well as the cold storage side in case we want to pull back files down the road. All right, so we're on site. We just got done shooting. We pulled drive off of our camera. We're ready. Before we leave site at all, we're ready to dump this to our warm storage devices. Remember, we got 2 terabyte, 2 terabyte. We're gonna dump to this one, and we're gonna dump to this one. They're gonna have the same files on them for redundancy. That way if somebody loses one, or if one gets damaged, we know that we're safe. So I'm gonna go ahead and throw these on the computer real quick, and we'll dive in. All right, so we have all of our media plugged in. Let's go ahead and open everything up. I got my 2 warm storage devices, and I got my camera media. So essentially this is all the files that I just shot. I'm gonna go ahead and set up a project file on the warm storage devices. So I'm gonna create a new folder. We're gonna call this Glide Cinema. That's the production company. We'll go into this, and the project was content. And then this is where we will go ahead and put our same folders that we named the files on our camera. So what we'll do, we know this was coming from the FX6. So we'll go GC_CON, so production company, then project code, and then date. And then we know this was the FX6 and it was the ACAM. So these files should be named, but if they're not, we'll know exactly where this is coming from. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna go into there, and I'm gonna go ahead and drop all these files, and that may take just a second. It should be pretty quick. Again, that's why we use these warm storage devices on site. They're a little faster, and typically if you're shooting with a cinema camera or something higher grade, you're gonna have fast cards in the device itself. So it's gonna drop pretty quickly here. We'll give that another minute. All right, so all of that footage is dropped. So let's just say we had some more folders here. So like we had a drone shoot that day for the same project. 072623, and then we could do like Inspire 2 and just put D, and then you could even do, if you had like an audio recorder, you could do GC CON 07262023, and then we could even do like Tascam X8 or something like that. So we have all that. Now we're just gonna go back to the main page here, and we're just gonna make a copy here. So we'll give that a second to copy, but essentially as soon as that's done, we will have backed up all of our footage from that. And sometimes your camera cards are gonna be full before you're done shooting, so you'll have to do this in between shots. But typically if you're running larger media, you could do it all at the end of the day. It really just depends on your situation. If I'm moving locations in between shoots, I like to do it before moving locations. That way, just if something happens while I'm like driving to the next location, I don't lose my media. It's very, very crucial to back up all of your footage and audio and anything that you've recorded, just so you don't lose it in the interim. But essentially that sums it up for your on-site media management. We'll call that the shoot day media management. The next thing we're gonna do is dive into our cold storage management. So essentially, let's say we're done with the shoot for the day, it's 8 p.m., we're clocking out, we're headed back. I'm not just gonna go home. I know that I have it backed up to my warm storage devices, but for me that's not enough. So what I like to do is come straight back to the studio here, and I will actually back up all of this media to our cold storage. Then I have everything backed up everywhere. There's essentially no reason for me to lose any of the files at that point. So let's go ahead and dive into managing the cold storage side. All right, we made it back to the studio from our shoot today. We got another one coming up tomorrow, so we want to make sure that we offload these warm drives to our cold storage. That way we can have plenty of room tomorrow to drop files. So essentially, we're just gonna pull out one of our drives from today, one of our warm storage drives, from our nice little organizer there. Gonna throw this in the laptop. Now, you can already see our warm storage devices popped up. Cold storage, it's a lot slower, so it's gonna take some time to get set up here. I'm gonna go ahead and show you, we got our warm storage, we got all of our files from today that we just dropped, everything right there. We have that backed up on our other one, but of course we only need one to transfer these files and make copies. So while we're waiting on this to boot up, there it comes. All right, now essentially with our cold storage devices, the way we have them set up is we have each of our productions divided into buckets. So we have commercial productions, documentaries, features, we have our own work, random stuff that we've taken just out and about. That could be stock footage for drones or whatever. Short films, unsure, this is content that we've dropped in there or just dropped on a desktop when we didn't have time and put in there that we sort through, so we leave that folder there just in case we need it. And then weddings. But again, this holds all of our historical footage. So everything that we've ever shot pretty much is on there. Well, until you go to the other cold storage drives, they also have that. That holds all of these contents, and then we have a backup of all of those contents on an identical drive. So we're always making sure that if we need to go back and pull raw footage for a client or pull raw footage for a demo reel that we're making to show clients and sell our work, we can get that anytime we need it. So what we're gonna do is we just got back from shoot day 1. We have a shoot day tomorrow. We wanna make sure that we can back up all the files from our warm storage device to both of our cold storage devices. That way we can wipe the warm storage and use it tomorrow for the same exact thing. So it's pretty simple. I know this was a glide production. I'm essentially just gonna go into the project and I'm just gonna dump that in there. And you can see that's gonna take a little bit. Cold storage is much slower than warm storage. But again, that's why I invest in these. These are a little bit faster than most cold storage devices. I think you can get 200 to 300 meg a second out of them, which you won't be waiting around as long, so that helps out. Plus, these are nice. You can even take them, let's say I'm going to Florida for a week or California or wherever I'm going to shoot. I can take one of these with me as a cold storage device, and it can host all of the media while I'm there. They're very, very nice to lug around and pack if you need to. So another thing that I like to talk about is if, let's say, I go in here to my commercial, and let's say that we had a new client that we hadn't worked with before. Well, we're gonna go ahead and create a new client folder, and then we can start the projects in here, and essentially that's where the project codes come from. So if this was content, that would be the project code. Let's say we had VSL. We could put that in here as well, just as another project. But essentially, every client that we work with, even if we've only worked with them one time and don't work with them ever again, we make sure that we put them in here. I'm gonna go ahead and move that to trash just so I keep organized. But yeah, essentially we're gonna let these files transfer, and then what we're gonna do is we're gonna drop the files from this cold storage device to our backup cold storage device. Then we will be good to go and wipe the files from our warm storage devices for tomorrow, so that way we can move files from our camera, our recorder, our drone over to those while we're on site, just because they're much quicker. It's much more efficient when you're on your shoots. All right, thanks for hanging in there. I know media management isn't the sexiest thing, but it is one of the most important things in our industry, not only for us, but for our clients. So if you have any questions or thoughts, please leave them in the comments below. We're gonna be coming at you with so much more info, video, production related, and business related. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button or dislike button. I don't really care. Either way, we'll see you on the next one.